and protecting their
on the tiff panel.
intellectual property, sharing how these technologies can offer fresh approaches to storytelling. Our programming is made possible by the support of all of our sponsors and partners. A sincere thank you to our presenting sponsor, Rogers, our major sponsors, RBC and Visa, our major industry supporters, Ontario Create and Telephone Canada, and our media partner, Screen International, for supporting the Perspectives program. Joining us today, Nikola Todorovic, co-founder of Wonder Dynamics and Autodesk Company.
Oh, she's doing it.
Christina Lee Storm, producer and co-founder, Playbook, PLBK. Angel Manel Soto, filmmaker and creative advisor at a
You got it.
Sungwoo Kim, generative AI creator at CJE&M, and guiding us through this conversation is author, educator, and creative technologist, the amazing Don Allen Stevenson III. Please join me in welcoming Nicola, Christina, Angel, Sungwoo, and Don to the stage. Yay.
Testing audio. Good morning, everybody. So before we begin, the goal for today is going to be very practical, how to get some actual tangible advice from these legendary folks on stage. So I want to kind of introduce each one of them and then also have them share a little video about their work. So it should be really cool. All right, so first one we have is Christina Lee Storm, co-founder of Playbook. Sorry, I got my notes all scrambled up. There we go. Christina is co-founder of Playbook and leads the Television Academy AI and Production Standards Working Group. She's been a pioneer in storytelling through emerging technologies across film, series, XR, and at studios like Netflix and DreamWorks. And so if you want to show some of your work, Christina, that would be great.
Yeah, before we start the stuff, just real quick, this is a project that we worked with the Entertainment Technology Center, also known as ETC. I was a producer on this project called The Bends. It's written and directed by Tiffany Lin. And basically the story is, it's an AI-driven, artist-driven AI fairy tale allegory about a humble fish that sort of makes its way through the deep sea up to embark on its path to the top. So we're going to show a really quick clip. You can play it and I'll describe some things that are happening. So, we had a bespoke pipeline that started with detailed emblematic frames from Tiffany's storyboard, you can see here, capturing the director's intent. We also had 3D artists build character assets we used for training our logs. And our cinematography, who was Roberto Schaefer, guided the lighting, lens choice, look with Tiffany. And we're also very excited to be working with PhotoCam for our photo transfer, allowing us the highest final product quality. And lastly, we're also working through copyright, the copyright process with Playbook Air, which is my company's platform that is designed to capture and verify human authorship in Gen AI workflows.
Thank you so much, Christina. All right, our next guest here is Angel. Angel right here. Puerto Rican filmmaker who's directed everything from award-winning VR experiences to DC's Blue Beetle, and is also a creative advisor to Asteria. He's championing ethical AI tools for filmmakers.
Hi. Sorry, I come from the car.
Oh.
You're good. I've been partnering with Asteria precisely because I started finding a lot of problems that could have been solved easier. I'm thinking how we can streamline the process, be more efficient, and optimize our time and budget, given that, as you mentioned, like Blue Beetle and a lot of these big projects. Sometimes everything we do during soft prep or prep ends up being thrown away. How can we continue the process taking it all the way to pose, and that way seeing how we can stretch the buck a little bit longer. And encountering a lot of our issues on production in my last film, I was like, how can, whether it's visual intelligence, generative AI, all the different components, how can that help, at least help me translate the vision, the appetite, and the ambition that I have for a project when budget runs low, when schedule is against you, without interfering with the creative and the human component of being able to work on film.
And so we got some really cool work here from Onhill.
Yeah, this is like the different things that we're working on Stadia, where we have a model that is trained, is the only commercially licensed, commercially safe model that has licensed material trained in HD. And the tools that have been created inside our platform have been designed by filmmakers in order for that we can address the different obstacles that we face, not only at studio level, but also in Puerto Rico, where it's an emerging country, we have limited resources, but we have big creative ambitions. So by being able to use this, maybe we can dream bigger and be able to do more stories so that you guys can also enjoy.
Let's give a round of applause. All right, so our next guest is Sungwoo Kim. Sungwoo is an AI studio senior creator at CJ&M, where he's creating Cat Biggie, the first 100% AI-generated animated series. He's exploring how generative AI can expand the entire medium of image creation.
네, 안녕하세요. CJENM의 AI 스튜디오에서 기술가 왔어요.
Hello everyone, I am Sungwoo Kim. I work as an creative director for CJ&M.
영어가 조금 서툴러서 한국말로 해서 통역을 하면서 이해해 주시면 되겠습니다.
I am here with an interpreter today because of my English abilities, so thank you for your patience.
네, 저는 지금 CJENM의 그 신사업 추진으로 시작해서 AI 스튜디오 팀으로 AI 드리븐 컨텐츠를 혁신하고 신유형 비즈니스를 개발하는 사업에 주력하는 팀에 소속되어 있고요.
So I am part of a team that's working on AI content development at CJ&M.
그리고 그 첫 번째 결과물이 현재 그 유튜브에서 아마 대한민국 첫 사례로 알고 있습니다만 AI 시리즈 애니메이션 캣빅입니다.
And so the first project that I'm sharing with you guys is, I believe, the first project in Korea as well, where the entirety of the animation is AI generated, and the project is called Cat Biggie.
네, 지금부터 샘플 영상을 보여드릴 텐데요. 브리프하게 저희가 어떤 워크플로우로 제작을 했는지 보여드리겠습니다.
So as we watch Cat Biggie, I will kind of walk us through how our workflow proceeds.
Thank you so much, Sungwoo. We have one more guest on the stage here. This is Nicola. Nicola is co-founder of Wonder Dynamics with the actor Ty Sheridan before it was acquired by Autodesk. This is an AI-driven VFX platform to help allow artists to easily animate and have character consistency with VFX and It's really phenomenal. And so, yeah, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So yeah, as you mentioned, we started company quite early for AI, at least for early about 2016. It really started as a means and end for us. We were writing the film we wanted to make. And usually, whenever Thailand on the right something, usually a sci-fi that would cost $200 million to make. So it really started as something we wanted to build to help us speed up the process of having CG characters. So these are obviously shots that you shoot and then you can put in CG characters and speed up the whole process. But we didn't want to generate a shot, we really wanted to keep the movie magic on it, so you're driving your performances. You're picking up, you can see from the little screen, you're picking up performances and animation, and then you put it in a 3D world with a lot of passes. So it's very important for us to build something that works with the existing pipeline, so you can edit it, right? So it's not a kind of black box. You get a lot of, you have your animation data, your lighting, etc., and you can go in the 3D software with that, as you see some of the passes. That was something, as a VFX supervisor and an artist, so that was something very important. And then a good message from last year, I think.
We've lost sight of the value of the actual process. The big concern for me with these emergent technologies is it's not so much the economics, it's not so much the employment. It's that if you bypass the artistic process, if you bypass the pain of failure, if you give someone the ability to just skip the 10,000 hours, what does it do? Where do artists come from if they're not forced to go through those processes? And what are the personal costs?
It asked me if I could do something fun the last year, and I thought this message was kind of appropriate for what you're going to talk about today.
Yes, that was fantastic. Round of applause for the whole panelists. All right, so again, we want to get really practical today and kind of talk about what is actually involved. So this first question is actually just a popcorn. Whoever wants to jump in. What has been the most surprising thing with a project recently that you used AI that you were just like, whoa, didn't know that was possible?
Okay, I'll jump in. So one of my projects, we needed this aerial shot that was impossible to achieve because of provisions. Rightfully so, you should lock streets. You should put a path, no unions, and doing all of that just takes a lot of time and money to do. And on top of that, the restrictions of drone flying makes it really hard for the device to fly over the city. So on the edit, we felt like we need these astonishing shots. It's going to be really shitty if it's just like a static or a panel given the visual language of the film. So we took some pictures from different angles of a room overlooking the street, and using my phone as a camera, I was able to animate the still picture and create this really usable flyover. So that when I put it on the test screen, it proved that that's exactly the shot that we needed. And then eventually, they paid for the shot. But if it wasn't for the opportunity of creating the shot and showing them that it could be done without wasting or investing money that they're not willing to pay, that shot would have probably been approved to get done. So in my case, that is an example of creating inserts to put in front of an audience to see if it's worth their money. It is a great way to streamline the process and get your vision across.
Really similar. I think one of the projects I've been working on is trying to get everyone together on the same page. So it's very much similar to like virtual production in that sense, but it's a new iteration of that, where everyone's sort of, okay, you can do your storyboards, which is great, but without it being in context, like full context of like environment and sort of seeing the motion of it, it's a little bit hard. So we're using it as almost a sense of like a first cut previs to see, is this what we like? And then how do we sort of keep extending that work and that piece?
Why was that surprising?
Well, okay, so from my virtual production experience, there's a lot of different umbrellas to that, but a lot of it was mostly things that were, not affordable. So Wonder Dynamics came along, and I think that the process of previs and the process of what we want to be able to see in prep is starting to sort of really become more and more the tool needed and in some sense required. So I think that what's so surprising is folks were able to really kind of jump onto it, see it, and understand it a little bit more. So to some degree, you're almost like shooting your piece first and then sort of going through it. It's a little, we've said, where's post, where's pre, fix it in pre versus post. It's now all happening all at the same time.
I like that, fix it in pre-production, something you don't really hear a lot. Do you want to jump on any surprising things that, like, in any recent projects?
Yeah, talk a little bit about projects. We've seen a lot better. Thank you for that. I've been in the paid
Well, that was when I was super excited. When we talked, it was like, oh my gosh, this is great.
Well, thank you. We've seen studios, animation studios recently out of Japan, where they said their daily output of animation went from 40 seconds to 3 minutes. It's really good to hear. That's good improvement. We've seen also being used, traditionally you don't really see CG characters in kind of weekly, television, live television shows. So we had like Matt Singer use it for a sequence, which was also, not something I kind of saw. And then obviously, something like Boxer Studio, which I'm a big fan of, they did like Superman and Lewis. They did a lot of fighting sequences, which helped them obviously with like when Superman was flying, having a battle sequence, so getting more cap out of footage, etc. And then, really excited, and you've seen big directors like the Russo brothers who's doing a film, etc. For us, it was very fulfilling.
One follow-up I have for you on that is, how long would it normally take someone to do motion capture for CGI before they have a tool like yours?
Usually it's weeks to the process and a lot of hardware, right? It's really expensive to set up the full, mocap stage, etc. And obviously then, clean up the animation, etc. It takes a lot of time. We didn't, we built it in a way, I would say, it's not about like getting you your final footage. It's more, as you mentioned, it's more close to this. It's really up to getting animator to that boring part, the setup and all that, and then really focus on the creative. So it's really important for us to keep that part intact, and get you more to really the part where I was an artist, and when you get in the film industry, you think like, oh, I'm gonna make creative decisions right away in my career, and you realize you don't really get to meet a director or get supervised early on, and you do work that really doesn't have much creative input, and you do a lot of repetitive work. So that's something personally I also wanted to figure out in a way.
Amazing. What about yourself, Sungwoo? Anything that was surprising in production recently?
일단 저희는 방송을 제작하고 이제 송출하고 기획 연출도 하는 회사이기 때문에 그 부분에 있어서 AI 시도를 오랫동안 해왔던 것으로 알고 있습니다.
So we're a company that both shoots and distributes and broadcasts various programs. So I know that AI has been in our conversation for a long time.
다양한 시도들을 해왔고요. 그래서 그 AI 적용 사례는 사실 음악이나 번역 산업 등에서는 실제로 일부 지금도 사용이 되고 있습니다.
And so I believe that we have made various attempts as a company, and two of the main attempts that are actually in use already are music production and also translated subtitles for various programs. Background music.
그리고 이제 놀라웠던 사례의 경우에는 작년에 저희가 한국 시네마에서 처음으로 개봉한 엠포텔이라는 사례가 있었습니다.
So last year there was a project that was called and hotel in the cinema industry.
첫 AI로 만든 단편 영화가 한국에서 실제 극장에서 상영된 첫 사례였고요.
And so this was a short film that was AI generated and commercially released for the first time in theaters.
그래서 저희는 거기서 이제 가능성을 보고 기존에 이제 말씀드린 배경음악이나 번역 자막에서 저희가 효율성을 제고하기 위해서 사용했던 AI를 심리형 시간 개척이나 새로운 컨텐츠를 만들 수 있는 가능성을 좀 테스트해보자라는 생각으로 캣비기를 만든 사례가 있습니다.
And so when the short film was released in theaters, that's where we saw more possibility beyond background music production and subtitle production. And so as we tried to develop new contents, we thought that Cat Biggie could be our test trial for various consolidation of various efforts that we have already been making.
So Sung-Woo, one question I have for you on Cat Biggie. Do you have any tools that you can share that you use to make one of those shots? Maybe take us through like a process. How would you go about the scene, like going up the stairs? How do you go about that?
I'll just take over my English first a bit. Bear with me. Our workflows. I talked to earlier that we cannot disclose like details, but we in fact incorporate various tools. I would say almost every tool that in the market that everyone can access. Workflow wise, I think this pretty much resembles the legacy animation production pipeline. That's what I would say. But in partial process, there is AI adapted, I would say. And so one example might be image generation, but that is not like at home you get the prompts and you get the image and I got the new character. Mm-hmm. We are the company and we have to broadcast and we have to make profits. So we have a planning process and we develop the characters. Oh, wow. And if I were to disclose one more, we make the 3D dummies in concepts to get the angles and morphs and densities that we desire. Then we make the images together.
I love that workflow. What I really like about that workflow is you have a lot of traditional artists involved in this process of AI, like the 3D workflow that you're describing. That's very helpful to hear.
One comment. I started my career first in CJP and as a business development, but in AI. But before that, I was a photographer for 20 years, and so I know how animation works, and I know about the production pipelines. But my personal opinion is AI is more like a tool that I can utilize to visualize.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you for that insight. Question for you, Christina. Jumping into standards. So I know you're on a lot of really cool committees and you talk a lot about standards, regulations. Is there any new standards that have come up this year that the audience should be aware of?
Yes, thank you for asking. So I'm the governor for the Television Academy and the Emerging Media Programming Peer Group. As you mentioned, I was the lead for the working group of the Responsible AI and Production Standards Task Force. So we just got approved and board approved and everything for what we are calling our key considerations before using generative AI on the project. And there's 3 key principles. That's why I found. The first principle is creative integrity to professionals, creators, performers, and craftspeople.
Okay.
Second is permissions, licenses, legal and commercial viability. And the third is accountability, transparency, sustainability. And so some of what we've done in the key considerations is just list out these things you should consider before using generative AI. We're not necessarily mandating things per se, but really allowing of the nearly 30,000 members of the Television Academy, there's 31 peer groups, so we had to make sure every peer group person, someone in makeup, someone in lighting, a director, a producer, could go through this list. And I'm going to mention a couple of them really quick.
Please.
Under each principle. So there was like probably four questions, but I'll just read off one from each principle. So how does my decision to use generative AI support and respect the work of the artists and collaborators on this project, including writers, performers, directors, producers, and craftspeople? Have they been informed and are properly credited or compensated for their contributions? The second one is in relation to license. This is really big. This is really coming to surface today on a lot of the lawsuits that are happening with the studios. But is the AI model I'm using trained on ethically sourced, properly licensed, and clean data, and not pirated or publicly available content without prior consent or permission from copyright owners? And then the third.
Thank you.
We pay $1.5 billion if you like. Otherwise, the third is how will I disclose transparency to the production team, distributors, clients, or stakeholders when, where, and how Gen AI was used in the project?
This is phenomenal. Again, just for the reiteration, if someone in the audience wanted to look up this standard, what do they search?
Good question. So we're in the middle of Emmys right now. So post Emmys, you should be able to find it on the Television Academy's website. But if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'm happy to share out those key considerations. We'll have it in, if you're a Television Academy member, it'll be in the newsletter. We'll also be sending it out. Also, it's going to get coverage on Emmy Magazine. We're in the middle of Emmy season right now. So.
Busy times. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Got another question here for Anhil around when to use AI tools. Like you do lots of different productions, live action, AI. When do you say I'm going to use AI?
Well, the good thing is that it's not a one-size-fits-all. I think that the process of creating a film or developing a story should still be the same process that we're all used to. And I think as you keep going forward, same if you're doing like a VFX movie, you dissect the script, you work with the storyboards, like you do the work. Like there shouldn't be any shortcuts to it. You work with your concept artist, and then you start finding out where along the process I can start using different AI tools, agents, or think of how I'm going to be shooting this and then use it later. But by involving as much people from the head of departments as you can, it's many ways, whether it's by training LoRa's, or whether it is by realizing that, you don't need to put trackers anymore, you can just work it up here while you're editing the film. I still like to do things very analog. I still like to do the drawing on paper. I still like to direct actors. I'm not here to see if AI can do a performance for me. I'm here for how can I use AI so that I can satisfy my appetite to tell a good story and still have the opportunity to do what I love, which is create a story, build a community, work with talented people. At Australia, we have proven that by respecting the process and by still working with humans, the assistance that you can get from these tools are going to be even better in quality than just hoping a machine gives it to you. So coming with those pipelines, like it goes from animation the same way with the animated projects that we have done, we still work with artists, we still do the concept art, we still pay the artists, There's still the creation process of any output that could be generated so that it stays true to the artist's integrity. And and we still use animators. At least you can keep a holistic look throughout and still use 3D, 2D, stop motion, whatever you want to do. So it does help bring more people together. Yes, what might it reduce time? Sure. Budget? Yes. Amount of people? Of course. But the way I see it is, it may give you the opportunity that instead of doing one movie, you can do 2 or 3 projects, especially me that I have a lot of stuff that I've been working on. Another way that I've been using it, which is started like a year ago, is on the research and development things for script development. How I can use AI to privately to be able to ingest all the information, 1,000 pages of research, so that when I am writing and I'm like, oh, I remember this sentence in one of these 7 books with 600 pages each, that I want to be able to cross-reference so I can have a tool like that be created for me to be able to write something where honestly still I am the one doing the writing, not the machine doing the writing. Same thing goes with directing and so forth. So, I think that it all varies per project, and I think that's the beauty of it. And even if you want to do the whole thing with Mary or any other AI, like, why not? Like, just try, experiment, do whatever you have to do to tell your story. When I was growing up, like, kids from the projects would have a really hard time being able to rent equipment. We might have a vision, we didn't have phones with cameras, but if I had this technology and nobody wanted to give me $10,000 to do a short film, why not use them? Why not be able to democratize access and see kids with limited resources be able to tell stories in a different way? And from there, I feel like, I think there is many ways of using it. I think to Christina's point, it is very important to protect artist integrity, protect IP, be able how we can do things in a commercially safe way as we rebel together with this tidal wave of AI.
Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned earlier, you got a nice round of applause. Now, there's a lot of jargon that's used in AI, and you mentioned LoRa's. What is that, and why is that relevant to how and when you use AI?
I mean, when it comes to LoRa training, what we have noticed is the more you're able to provide information that belongs to you, that you have worked with an artist. I use the same team that I've been working on before because they produce great stuff. And how can I then be able to do all the turntables, use all the turntables or their imagination, and then train a model in a way that's going to be able to keep consistency throughout. And the more information they're able to provide, similar like when I'm building a deck or I'm trying to communicate my vision with different heads of department, with different personalities and egos, I end up having a 200-page Bible of all my research. All the pictures that I took, all the reference from Shutterstock, and then whatever, movies, references, and they go out with their teams and they create stuff that they give me and I signed up. Once that happens, you could technically allow that information to be used in LoRa training so that when you do a previs, you do a post, whatever process you're in, you can see things closer to the finish line. You can fail faster. I think failing is very important. I love that video. That's why we need to protect the process as well if we want to keep the humanity in it. Because I think the more we fail, the more strongly we're going to feel about the things that are going to succeed. But if we're able to fail faster, you're going to be able to save money so that your film looks closer to your vision, and maybe you can get to make another film instead of waiting 2 years to make a film. Like one example with the last project was we didn't have the budget to populate the pool. And this is water dynamics, this is water multiplication. So doing the VFX and trying to see how that's going to play, even to put it on a test film is going to be very, very expensive. So we were able to generate a mock-up that looked very good for playability, and it was so good that that's the same mock-up we gave to the VFX vendor, and they were able to give me something that they created version 2 instead of version 67. And it was able to happen in a week instead of a month. And being able to do that, we felt like, okay, this is another great way of using this technology in order to communicate with a vendor that's probably Belgian. So that just, I feel like I'm able, and again, my first language is not English. I'm translating in real time. Sometimes I don't express myself fully, but if I can show you, then we're gonna have a better communication, and I'm helping you be more effective. Like we said, like most of the work of the effects, you're literally in a room going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And like, they want to be creative too. So this way, you can give them the space to be creative.
So just for the record, I was looking at the captions. It said LoRa training. It spelled it like L-A-U-R-A. That is not it. It's L-O-R-A. So if you want to look that up. Question for you, Nicola, around when have you seen examples of time saving from filmmakers when they're using Flow Studio?
That was the one I mentioned about having going from 40 seconds a day to 3 minutes in the aspect. Yeah, but I can talk a little bit about how we kind of build this in a way. We wanted to just an example. What you get in your output is really from your input, right? So if you shoot an iPhone, with terrible lighting, we have about 25 models that are running in the background that will match what your input is. So we're not really generating, we're not using prompting. So for us, it's very important to keep that movie magic of, you have a good cinematographer, you have a performer, right? Your actor is driving the performance of the character, which I thought was very important. I really, don't think you can prompt a performance. And I also hope we don't end in the future where we're just, having actors licensing their likeness and then everything being generated. I said that before. I think that would be a failure of this technology for our industry, at least. So, my co-founder really wanted to, keep that, in the visual effects, especially, this well. When you're doing a project, you're bidding it, you're saying, okay, I have 2,000 VFX shots. You have your easy VFX shots, your medium, your hard ones, right? So, with our tool as well as, if your VFX shot is easy, you're gonna have less cleanup, right? If it's hard, you're gonna have more cleanup because AI is gonna struggle. So your video that you get out is sort of telling you like, okay, AI worked well here, but didn't work well here. The lighting doesn't look good. Performance maybe not there, so I gotta correct it, or maybe my background is not as clean as I wanted it. So that's, as you mentioned, for us, it's more like, how do I plug in this process in existing pipeline? Because I think there was this, if you read LinkedIn post and Twitter posts 3-4 years ago, Hollywood's dead already, right? Guys are taking over. Every day I repeat something, Hollywood's dead, it's over, right? I think this promise of that one tool is going to replace entire pipeline is wrong. There are really smart people who are past, I don't know how many decades been building these pipelines and build it to solve problems they have in production. Every production has a different problem. So that's why for us it's important, not to ignore that and build something that fits in production pipeline versus saying like, no, I need these tools, I'm just going to type in 2 sentences and have that movie, right? So I don't think that's going to be the case. It's really going to be a kind of multi-modality approach where you can use, your play to drive maybe your camera. You can use it to drive your performance. Maybe you prompt something in this way or give it a little bit of a reference, a visual reference to that side, and then obviously, you shoot what you need to shoot. So that's kind of my opinion.
This is music to our ears.
Yeah.
I want to kind of transition the conversation a little bit into some how-tos. So this one's for you, Sungwoo. Character consistency. So how are you doing that? I noticed like in the demos you showed us, you have the same character, different actions, different frames. How do you do that in a fully AI generated way that you're allowed to share?
I'll interpret it. 일단은 technique 같은 경우는 100% AI로 제작되었지만 아까 말씀드린 대로 애니메이션 프로세스하고 유사한 점이 있다고 말씀드렸는데요.
As I said previously, CapBaby is indeed a 100% AI-generated animation, but it also shares many aspects with the traditional animation production process.
일단은 말씀하신 컨시스턴시 관련해서는 크게 2가지 팩터에서 온다고 생각을 합니다. 두 가지 팩터는 우선은 말씀드린 그 시스템 더미에서 한 거고, 두 번째는 기존 레거시 파이프나 라인하고 유사한 사람이 그걸 보완하는 과정으로 되어 있습니다.
So there are two aspects that Cat Biggie's production differs from the traditional animation workflow. The first is the 3D dummy aspect, and the second aspect is we will have actual real people just kind of improving and revising some of the aspects as in the legacy workflow.
Amazing, thank you. That's super helpful to hear for the audience. Another question I have for you, Christina, is around cross-platform worlds. So, I met you at DreamWorks. You're doing a lot of incredible work in the XR space, but now you're in this AI space and regulation space. So, from what you've seen this year, what are some cross-platform worlds AI tools that work best for that?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about this is when folks are thinking about AI, sometimes it's just like, how do I make it cheaper? Or can it be cheaper? And I think that might also be the wrong question that they're asking. I think when we talk about XR, multi-platform storytelling, really what we're enabling, especially when you brought up, like, you have more minutes, so we can actually, there is a possibility to get to a final product quicker. But I think if you're just thinking about it in a singular final product, we're not expanding our minds enough. And I think that the world in which we want to kind of play in is we have, let's say, it's a narrative. It could be a short form, it could be long form, it could be series, it could be film. But it also shoots out in a world building sense the ability to have all the other different means, something that might not be in existence. Maybe it's a game, maybe it's something interactive, maybe it is AR, VR, or location-based live. So I think that's what's interesting, and we're trying to, more and more conversations I've had with XR creators is that how do I take normally where I would have to create the content in Game Engine and then sort of utilize it, is testing out some of the AI content. How do I pull that back in and allow for me to like actually, either is it just creating the environment, is it being able to drive it within that world? And so I think we're seeing things sort of unfold. And really, I think it is bespoke to what the creator wants, especially in the XR world, but I think that we're going to start to see more of the application of like the AI content in different forms and then apply to more interactive or more multi-platform type of content.
Yeah, I'm just so excited for the time that we're in. Yeah.
It's not just, oh, can I make it cheaper?
Yeah.
I think that's the wrong question.
So this question is kind of for anyone on the panel, and it's around the idea of creative limitations. What are some creative limitations when using AI, or the reverse? Is there creative limitations that you've now been able to overcome because of AI? Just be curious if anyone felt comfortable jumping in there. Sungwoo? Yeah, please.
우선은 그 탭 제작 과정에서 저희들이 스토리보드나 코피를 가지고 제작을 하는데 그 과정 선상에서 의외로 예상하지 못했던 앵글을 AI가 주었는데 그게 더 좋은 경우가 있었습니다. 그 예가 있을 것 같습니다.
So when we were producing or storyboarding Cat Biggie, our animation, Jedi animated animation, some of the angles that Janai gave us were actually better than the ones that we had drawn for our storyboarding, so we chose to go along with those ones for some scenes, there's some shots.
And so that was overcoming the limit that you had before?
I'd say about half. Like some of the shots that we AI gave us, was not every teammate has expected it, so we were like, maybe we could change the next thing.
It's upping the creativity within the team, you know?
That's helpful to hear.
I was gonna say that for me, in terms of the limitations, sometimes, when you're working on this big projects, you're not just responding to yourself, you're also, it's a whole team, you have a lot of producers and executives and a bunch of cooks in the kitchen at times, and you always have to lobby your decisions, you have to prove it, and the speed of things sometimes don't let you do it. And of course, it's always better to fix a lot of these things in prep. Definitely, I wouldn't sleep on it. I think prep should be 3 months, should be 6 months or a year. That way, you don't have to spend 52 weeks in post, like I am right now. But I think that what it helped was it literally, I was able to address a creative limitation that whether I wasn't able to communicate properly or they weren't able to see, there was a scene that wasn't working well. And I thought of a solution that they couldn't understand. So I went on, I took a picture of the car with a broken window, I wrote a paper and I did the camera move and we did the same, the insert shot that, 7 minutes, you don't have the time to shoot. And I was able to do that, put it in the cut, show it to them, and then they were like, yeah, sure, yeah, let's do it, right? So, for me, it's able to, at least makes the connection between all departments, executives, producers, more tangible and accessible when life is moving faster than your brain to mouth connection,
I want to add to that. I think also the creative limitation, interestingly, is if you're able to generate things more quickly than what we're used to, we have to be able to make decisions, right? And get, maybe from your perspective, is get the approval quicker. So I think that's the other thing that I started seeing is okay, we're seeing a lot of iteration come through. Are we, in a traditional sense, because we're hybriding, are we able to make the decisions that we need to make as quickly as possible and get the approvals necessary as possible? Because you keep going, it's just need that approval, I need the teams to understand that.
Yeah, sometimes we have designed this shot in Postgres that, it costs over $1 million to do a really simple, looks like PlayStation 1 animation. And that's fine, that's part of the process again. But I was like, man, if we would have done it in a more effective way, again, it's not gonna look that great and that's okay. But after 3 regime changes in Warner Brothers, the last regime was like, yeah, you don't need that. I'm like, man, that's over $1 million that I could have used differently in the movie, that I could have put into the frame. And now, right in hindsight, it was years ago, the technology was not there. I'm like, if you can get to something that you like in prep without costing your leg and arm, then you can put that leg and arm in a better VFX solution. Maybe you can get the vendor that you wanted that's able to do all these dynamics in a better way and use your money wisely, as opposed to conforming to something that is not up to your standards. So again, it all goes back to the process. It goes back to prep. How can we use these tools early on so that when we go to production, we get what we need, and when we're in post, we already did the test. We already know what's going to work. If anything changes, it's because you put it on the audience, and then you get some, the whole process of testing. But I do believe that by allowing yourself to explore technology like this, you're going to be more satisfied with the production that you were able to have more control over, as opposed to letting some computer make the decision for you.
So just give a big round of applause to our panels. We do have some time for some questions from the audience. One question. So, oh, I see a hand. Hello. So I'm going to repeat whatever you say, because there's no mic.
Especially for Christina, but also for others. There's been a lot of stigma about AI in the industry, a lot of VFX artists who, you know, a lot of people across the board in below-the-line crafts who are worried about losing their jobs. Have you found that those attitudes changing? I mean, it feels a bit like people are terrified and against it, but also using it and caught in that sort of in-between space.
I'm just going to repeat the question for the audio. So there's a lot of stigmas around AI and its use and how it might take jobs. Are you seeing any areas where the attitude is changing towards? Is that the question?
So I would have to say that a lot of this is about education and understanding, right? It's that sort of change. I always use the corporate term, sorry, change management. But I would say that, and I'm honestly saying, not just because two of you are on this go, when New Valley came to the challenge of like, we can create a clean model and pay for it and license, that gave an option for us as an industry, as professionals, to choose that to be commercially safe. So there's that figure. I think a lot of people feel like, I don't have a place quite to go. So 2 years ago, the Television Academy did an AI summit. A lot of like disgruntled folks because not quite understanding the tool or thinking, reading the headlines, saying it's going to take over everything. This year, we had a lot more people sort of come and be much more open to it, because I think what we're seeing as more and more people are using the tools is that it's advancing certain pieces, but it's not advancing everything. And some people might say, oh, it's going to, take over and do all these things. I think that's left to be determined by the what if, but I live in the now, and I live in the practical, and I live in the, I have a deadline and I have to produce something. So the work of an artist is even that much more crucial. The ability to have filmmaking, language, filmmaking understanding, all of the traits that are part of the process and have always been a part of the process is crucial. Then you can apply the tools to help you. And I think that's what we've been doing a lot in the Television Academy. So we do the AI Toolkit series and whatnot to just allow people to sort of see what that means. It does, we have a kind of a mantra, like it's not forced upon you to actually have to use the tool, but to understand it should be something that you really should care about. So I think we're seeing that shift, not to say that it's taking over, but I think it's wise for us to sort of be aware, and then you can make your decision, okay, what is my next step? How do I want to do this? That's why the key considerations, again, were really important, because you need to have a list of questions that you go to the studio head, the producer, whoever, the financier, the distributor. These are my questions as an individual, as a professional, and this is what I find important. So, yeah.
Let's give a big round of applause for our panelists. You can meet them in the lobby if they're sticking around for questions. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yay. Great work.
It feels very like it's not so. It's cool.
Great work. All right.
Okay, so again, we have another quick turnaround. So doors open in 15 minutes. That needs to take away one microphone, and then we'll just go.
Just alive.
Oh yeah, man.
How many people?
I don't know. Thanks for joining.
My last question.